So if you watched my previous video about the Viltrox chip lens, you already saw that I bought a Nikon ZF again. I'd actually made a much longer video explaining all my reasons for getting this camera for a third time now. I bought it on launch, then I bought an orange one, sold both of those, now I bought this again. Unfortunately, the long form video that was like almost 20 minutes long that I made, the battery died in the middle of it, and so it cut off about 3/4 of the way through. Also, the sound was a little wonky for my tastes, so I'll still put that video at the end of this, but I'm just going to give you a super quick summary in case you don't want to watch the video that then cuts off and doesn't come to a conclusion, you know. In a nutshell, I bought this camera again because I think it's a great travel and everyday camera, and probably the best for my needs and tastes out on the market. If you've been watching my videos regularly, you know I've largely been using the Fujifilm GF system for my, workhorse work stuff. And then I got the Fujifilm GFX 100 RF, which will be my everyday during the day carry camera. And I'll get more into this in a later video about the RF. I'm working on a couple of videos about the RF, including one comparing it to the Hasselblad 907X 100C, whatever it is. So stay tuned for that. But for night shooting and for like going to the bar or shooting at like an event that's dark, the RF has some challenges. It can be done, but it's not ideal. So I got this camera for that. And then also I think for travel, where I'm going to need different focal lengths than the RF can provide. Like telephoto, for example. Portrait length, for example. The other big reason I got the ZF is that I really tried to like the L mount and the Panasonic Lumix S9 in particular. But this camera has one thing the S9 doesn't. A viewfinder, an EVF. And in my time in Cuba, I really missed it. And it made this S9 shooting experience just not that fun, at least in photo. This has an EVF. Do I wish it was better? Yep. Like the S9, do I wish the screen flipped up instead of flipping out? Yep. Like the S9, do I wish the shutter came down to protect the sensor so you don't get dust on the sensor when you're changing lenses? Yep. Like the S9, do I wish it had the joystick on the back? Yep. But this technically has two card slots, one's micro SD, unlike the S9, and it's got a viewfinder like I said. Plus, the Z mount has a big old opening so I can adapt all kinds of stuff, including Fuji X mount lenses. Check that out. Definitely going to be making a video and testing this out. Super fun, but can put all kinds of small Fuji lenses on here, Makes it much more portable and compact. And then, of course, very adaptable like Sony E mount, Canon EF, all kinds of glass. Basically anything that's not digital medium format or the Canon RF mount, or I guess the Panasonic Leica L mount. But everything else, Sony E mount, old manual focus glass, film era glass, so much stuff. So while not my perfect camera and probably won't even be my daily driver, for times when I'm out at night, going out with friends to dinner, to a bar, and just want to take some shots, the retro face of the ZF lets me carry the camera in places I wouldn't otherwise be able to carry a full frame or medium format, big old workhorse camera. And then, like I'll get into in a future video, the Fujifilm GFX 100 RF, while maybe my favorite camera of all time, isn't that great for fast-paced low-light shooting. Or at least I need more practice with it before I can say. So retro good looks, lots of adaptability, make it a really good travel or everyday carry camera. If you're not looking at the Fujifilm GFX RF 100 RF, whatever it is, I think the ZF is your best choice for an everyday carry retro camera right now. This is not to poo-poo the Fujifilm APS-C cameras. Those aren't for me. The image quality and the drawbacks of an APS-C camera for photography just aren't something I'm personally interested in right now that much. So yeah, if you're not going to go out and buy a GFX 100 RF and you're not going to spend the money on the Leica, I think getting the Nikon ZF with the retro charm will inspire you to shoot and will be a great choice. Just go for it. So by now, I'm sure most people, a year plus after release of this camera, have tried it. Do you own an RF? Have you bought and sold RFs in the past? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, all this stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. And then here is the longer form video that cuts off. Enjoy. I know there's no such thing as a perfect camera, but is that going to stop me from trying to find one? No, it is not. Having said that, I don't think the perfect camera for me is quite out on the market, at least in terms of a do-it-all, moonshot, all-in-one killer. But before I get into all that, to be clear, the point of this video is why I bought the Nikon Zf again. So, as I've talked about in previous videos, at least for my needs, there's sort of 3 categories of cameras that I need for various things. At the highest end, I need a pro-level camera. For photography, that probably means a medium format camera, and for video, I'm still working on it. You probably won't see this in this video, but I'm filming this on a GFX 100 Mark II, a red camera, and a Nikon Z6 Mark III. I've got the mic plugged into the Z6 III, so that's probably what I'll use for the video, because I'm going to do some other tests. But on the cinema side, I'm really curious to see, can you get away with using the GFX 100 Mark II? Is the footage that much cleaner with that bigger medium format sensor? Or does Red, with all of its cinema forward features, its recent acquisition by Nikon, plus just that awesome red color science, is that better for the kind of stuff I'm doing? I don't know, but, on that sort of pro workhorse job stuff, I would like that stuff. I think this category is more of a nice to have than a must have for the stuff I'm doing, but hey, darn it, I'm worth it. Then the second category, kind of moving down one, is the workhorse category. This is probably really where I actually cap out my needs, but again, hey, I'm worth it. I love the medium format stuff. I love the high-end stuff. I just want to know what's out there. I want to be well informed. If those high-end tools make my job easier and make things go faster, they may pay for themselves in the long run, and that's where it makes sense. But having said that, in reality, I probably can just get away with a workhorse type camera. And in this category, I would put the Canon R5 Mark II, the Nikon Z9, right? Maybe even the GFX 100 Mark II. In the Sony line, it would be the A7 R5, or maybe the A1 Mark II, that kind of a camera. But this video isn't really about either of those categories. This video is about that last category, sort of the lowest and maybe the lowest priority category, but also the category of camera that I'm likely to use the most, and that's an everyday carry camera. So what do I mean by everyday carry? It can't just be in a regular, DSLR mirrorless camera format, because many of the uses that I have for this camera involve taking it in to privately owned sort of public spaces, like bars, restaurants, that kind of thing. I want to be able to take the camera with me when I'm out with my friends, and I don't want to have someone, wait staff, bartender, whoever, bouncer, come up to me and say, hey, you can't have a real camera in here. So what I've learned is if you have something like the ZF, or say, I don't know, the GFX 100 RF or GFX 106, a retro-styled camera, you don't get that flag. People think you're just a hobbyist, you're just having a film camera, just a for fun camera, and they don't hassle you. You can shoot in these places. Whereas if you took a Nikon Z6 III, which I think would be a great camera for this purpose, like low light beast, compact enough to carry around with you, you'll get stopped and shut down. You won't be able to take pictures of your friends or whatever you're doing in those spaces. So for me, that everyday carry also has to be cool, fun, retro styled, can't look like a pro camera. Also, I just kind of dig walking around with a retro styled camera. It just looks better on you when you're carrying it around, let's be honest, I guess I'm fashionable in that way. So I've tried all kinds of things for this camera category. The Leica M11, M10, and M11 series. Obviously the Fuji rangefinder X106 and 100 RF series cameras. I've even tried a Fuji XM5 for this. What I would really like out of this category also is to have that camera being a system that has cameras across the three lines, across the product spectrum of things I need, right? That everyday carry kind of fun camera, makes you want to pick up and shoot it, just as a joy to shoot, is fun to shoot, looks cool, makes great pictures. Then the workhorse, everyday work camera, 9 to 5 camera, and then also, the upgrade path, the higher end camera, so that when I hopefully get to a point where I'm using just those high end things and I'm only getting hired for jobs that need those high end cameras, that brand, that company has everything, okay? I was kind of thinking that Fujifilm might be that brand, right? You would have the 100 RF or the X106 as the everyday carry, the GFX 100 Mark II, or maybe the XH2 as the workhorse, and then either the GFX 100 Mark II or the Eterna when it comes out as the upgrade path, sort of super pro level camera. So it would have been absolutely great if I felt like this GFX 100 RF kind of solved that problem, became my everyday carry camera. I'm still testing this. More to come on this camera, just like there's more to come on the video cameras, the Red and the Fujifilm GFX 100 Mark II. But I'm still working on it, like that video also. There's just some things about this camera that aren't quite what I wanted. It's a little bit of a disappointment, but I'm so conflicted because it's such a beautiful camera and it is really, really fun to shoot. I don't love the focal length on it. I don't love the f4. The no IBIS is not great, but the build quality is fantastic. The back screen flipping out is amazing. But again, I'm just conflicted. The short version of the review is this should have been a full frame camera. Ideally with a 35mm focal length like the X106. I don't know why they deviated from that. I just don't get it. As you might have guessed from some of the things I said about the GFX 100 RF, another thing I need in this everyday carry camera category is low light shooting. A lot of those bars and restaurants I was talking about are dark inside. So I need a camera that works well, can work fast in those scenarios. So if my friends are doing something funny at the bar, boom, I can get a picture of it really quick, right? I don't need a special flash to get it done, all that stuff. The camera just works in that environment. It's for that reason that the Fujifilm X106 didn't really work for me in this purpose. Again, love the build quality, love the form factor, love the retro vibes. Never have had any pushback from anyone taking pictures with this camera because it's so small and compact. It looks like a hobbyist travel camera. Never get any flack for using it, like in public, private, public spaces. But because of its APS-C sensor, it's not great in low light. You have to use the flash to flash people, which gives you kind of a fun look, but that's not always the look I'm looking for. And the flash kind of messes up the whole thesis of being able to do quick, kind of stealthy shots, not getting hassled by a bartender, bouncer, etc., wait staff, because that flash is very bright. It works very well, but it's very bright. So, for that reason, this didn't really work for me. 35mm is the correct focal length, in my opinion, for a camera like this. It's got the great flip-up screen. The build quality is good enough, all that stuff. I don't have one here to show, but the Leica M11, full frame, good in low light, but no flip-up screen. And I have bad enough eyes that the OVF doesn't really work for me. I'll get into things that would make me switch in a different part of this video. But for now, the point is that the medium format cameras from Fuji didn't work. The APS-C cameras from Fuji didn't really work. And the only other camera company making a retro-styled camera, besides Olympus, but put Olympus in the APS-C problems category with its Micro Four Thirds camera, the OM3, whatever it's called. And the Pen F is too old for lots of reasons. I can get into that if you're interested in a separate video. But the only camera company making a retro-styled camera that's good in low light is Nikon with its ZF. So for that reason, I bought this camera for a third time now. I bought it when it launched, sold it because there's some things missing that bug me. I bought an orange one of these, sold it because the orange didn't look good with this hand grip. And again, there's just some things that bugged me about it. And I was hoping that the GFX 100 RF would solve my problems in this category. And then now I bought it again for a third time in black, so it goes good with this newer hand grip thumb support thing that I have made videos about. I can make another video about it if you're interested. I will link where to get it because I do think it's the best hand grip, thumb grip for the ZF on the market. It's also an Arca Swiss plate, which is nice. It's got the screw on, screw off with the handle, so you don't need a special tool. It just works really well. Not to mention the cool F3 styled stripe on it. The other big reason I bought the ZF again, besides it meeting this low light shooting retro styled camera, kind of like a tuxedo camera when you dress up, if you carry this with you, not unlike a Leica, it'll look good and go with your outfit. No one's going to question it. If you got like a mirrorless DSLR camera, people will ask, what are you doing? Are you the hired photographer? You know? So besides that, like being the tuxedo camera, the other reason I really got back into Nikon cameras and the ZF in particular is that it's so adaptable. As you can see here, I've got a NovaFlex adapter that allows you to adapt Leica M lenses. I've got a sweet Light Lens Lab 50mm on here, retro throwback. More about this f1.2 lens in another video. It is sweet. It is Leica quality, I would say, surprisingly. But I can also adapt Canon EF glass to this, Sony E-mount glass, including these Sigma contemporary primes, which really go well with this camera because they have an aperture ring. I can adapt Leica R-mount lenses to it, although I don't have that adapter. I've got a PL mount adapter coming for this. Just basically anything made in the last 50 years that's not the latest generation of Canon RF glass or like medium format glass like the Fuji and Hasselblads can be adapted to this camera. That's pretty sweet, especially for a gasaholic camera gear junkie like me that loves to try new lenses and adapt lenses to mirrorless systems. So for the time being, the Nikon ZF comes closest to the everyday carry camera that I need. But it's not to say it's a perfect camera, okay? Like I said in the intro, it's pretty clear to me there is no perfect camera right now. If you watch my videos, I think I've been pretty clear as to what I want in a perfect camera, right? A Leica Q3 with interchangeable lenses and a joystick is one way of saying it. Another way of saying it is a Panasonic S9 with an EVF and a joystick, right? Another way of saying it is a Nikon Zf with a joystick, a flip-up screen, and a sensor protector. The shutter comes down to protect the sensor. Like, this is so close to being perfect. Better EVF also. What I've learned about myself is that I'm not really, that much of a fixed lens camera guy. I like to change focal lengths. I like to have like a 24 wide angle, a 35 or 50 regular view-ish, lens, and then a telephoto like a 75 or a 90 or even longer. I see things in those three different focal lengths and I know when I want to use them, and a fixed lens just doesn't let you do that. Because I can adapt like Leica M glass to this, the lenses that I used for those three focal lengths can be very small. Also like this E Sigma Contemporary, right? That's kind of my perfect kit for everyday carry stuff, for travel, is a small retro body and then 2 or 3 prime lenses. It's also nice that the Nikon Z mount has lenses like this 24 to 200 zoom lens, f4 to 6.3. So if I want a do-it-all super, flexible focal length lens for like travel, say, I can put that kind of a lens on this camera as well. That's a really nice option. So yeah, in a nutshell, I don't know that a fixed lens camera was ever really for me. If the Leica Q343 had a joystick, we might be talking. Or even better, there was a Leica Q series with a 35mm joystick, we would definitely be talking. But outside of that, I think I just prefer being able to change my lenses out so I can do more with my everyday carry camera. The ZF definitely checks the interchangeable lens box and the super adaptable box for so many different lenses that you can use on this camera with a simple adapter. Are there things I would change about this camera? Yeah. I mean, the first time I sold it, and probably even the second time I sold it, it was because it's so close, but missing some key things that would really make it a killer camera, that it just frustrated me, But I think this is the best that I can get right now, and I want to use this camera every day. I don't want to wait and hope for rumored cameras. This is what I've got right now. So it is the closest to what I want, but there are things I would definitely change about it. If you've watched my other videos, I've said it, but I'll just say them again. The camera needs a joystick so badly. I don't understand how people, can do single point autofocusing with any kind of efficiency without a joystick. It also helps in manual focusing. This has got a cool eye detect feature. It'd be great if you could use the joystick to move around the point and then have the manual focus features work tied to that point that you're moving around with the joystick. I'm just saying. I think this camera should have a flip up screen, not just a flip out screen. If they have a combined one like they do on the Panasonic cameras or on the Sony a7R5, that would be great. But flip out is for video. This is a photo camera primarily. So, not a huge deal. I can live with this. But the reality is it ends up like a Leica camera, just like this most of the time, because it doesn't flip up. The EVF in here is too low res. It needs to be 5 point something dot megapixels. As it is with the 3.6 or whatever it is, it's a little fuzzy, it's a little blurry, it makes manual focusing hard, which is a shame because it has great manual focusing features otherwise. The control layout here just fits my hand. It's easy for me to drop my finger down and go to the plus and minus for manual focusing, but that kind of gets ruined by the lousy EVF. Another thing I would change about this camera is this. That sensor is naked. I don't understand. I thought Nikon got the message. The Z8 and Z9 have a protector that comes down and covers the sensor for when you're changing lenses. But they haven't implemented it on all of their cameras. So cameras that have no sensor have a special sensor protector put in them. And then the cameras that have shutters that could just come down and protect the sensor don't do that. I understand there's a workaround where if you turn the camera on and yank the battery out, the shutter stays down, and you can do that in like high dust environments, but I don't want to do that over and over again. It feels like it might damage the camera or mess up files or corrupt files or something. I wish they would put the firmware update in that you have the option so that when you turn the camera off, the shutter comes down and covers the sensor, keeps dust off the sensor. It's just a no-brainer. Every camera in 2025 should be doing this, and it's frustrating that Nikon has kept this out of its lower-end models to date. The last thing in terms of the camera itself I would change is that it's just a little big and heavy. You know, with this Leica heavy-duty glass on it, it's kind of heavy. The RF, a medium format camera, is considerably lighter than this setup. I do like the build quality, especially the top plate and these brass dials. Nikon did a nice job with that. It's got a nice click to it. Like the shutter has a nice sound to it. But man, this is a big and heavy camera. Even if you put on like the Viltrox chip lens using the Sony E-mount adapter, the Mega adapter, which is an excellent adapter, I'll put that link in the description below as well. It's still kind of a heavy camera to carry around with you all day long. I wish they could find a way to make it more like the RF in this weight, except, you know, this size, just a little bit smaller and lower profile. That would be great. And I say this meaning smaller, lower profile, but keeping at least this build quality, because it is a nice build quality. I have to give Nikon that. So if it's not obvious by this point in the video, am I in love with this camera? I wouldn't say that. Do I really, really like it? Yeah, for sure. Is it the camera I'm probably going to use the most day in and day out? Yes, absolutely. But there are some things that would make me switch off of this and look for that perfect solution. Again, with the product upgrade path, you know, everyday carry, workhorse, high-end pro, you know, aspirational camera. One brand that could make me do this is Leica. No surprise if you watch this channel, you know I like the Leica stuff. I like a Leica. If they come out with the rumored M11V, where it has an electronic viewfinder instead of a rangefinder, I would definitely give that a long, hard look. Since it's a manual focus only camera, you don't really need the joystick. It would be nice if it had a flip up screen, but just that Leica magic, it gets a lot of leeway. It doesn't have to have all the features of another camera. If you're getting really close to a film camera with that Leica M11V, that's something I would give a hard look at. In addition, Leica is rumored to be coming out with a medium format digital system, so you would kind of have all those things. You could go Leica M11V, the SL system for workhorse, or maybe just do the medium format system for both workhorse and that aspirational. You know, you can also supplement with Panasonic stuff or Blackmagic cameras on the aspirational side, but Leicas are so expensive, they're kind of aspirational even in that workhorse or even everyday carry camera category, so I don't know. I don't think Leica's coming out with a cinema camera, so it's not a perfect amalgam, perfect example here, but it is something I would definitely look at in terms of switching. Like I intimated before, if Panasonic, another L-mount camera, comes out with like an S9 with an EVF and a joystick and maybe a higher res sensor and that sensor protector with the shutter coming down, I would definitely look at that. That's an easy one, right? The S9 is the everyday carry, or I should say the S9 II as the everyday carry, and then you have the S1 series, S1R2, and S1 II is the workhorse cameras. Aspirational, again, kind of like the Leica, gets a little tricky. You have like the Blackmagic Pixis cameras. That's a different brand, a different menu system, and so on. So I'm not really sure there. And then finally, the one camera system, kind of the elephant room I haven't mentioned, is Canon. If they come out with an AE1 retro camera, kind of like this, but like with a joystick, with a better EVF, candidly, Canon has better color science than Nikon, if you ask me, at least straight out of the box. You know, if they come out with that camera, Canon definitely has everything you need, at least everything I need, right? You have the everyday carry, this AE1 retro camera, workhorse R5 II all day long, and then aspirational cine camera, you've got the C8. Canon, surprisingly, if they come out with that retro camera, would have the fullest, most fleshed out lineup to compete with Nikon. Why I haven't mentioned Sony is that I don't think they're going to make a retro everyday carry camera. You've got the A7CR. I tried it. That little tunnel viewfinder drove me nuts. No joystick. Just Sony doesn't do cameras the way I want them to. So because they don't have the everyday carry camera, it doesn't really work for me. They certainly